Hello, and welcome to the Meg Method podcast, the coaching podcast that helps you move, think, and feel better for life. Today's episode is a solo one and is for anyone who is pooping their pants a little bit for the Tokyo Marathon. Last minute nerves before a big race is perfectly normal, and I believe that nerves are actually a good thing. It's your body's signal for telling you that whatever you're about to experience means something to you. It's important. And I also believe that nerves and excitement are the flip side of the same coin. If you really pay close attention, they actually feel very similar in your body. You might have sweaty palms, an increased heart rate, a flutter in your chest or in your tummy. They are one and the same. But you get to decide which side of the coin it's going to land on. Do you choose to be nervous, or are you going to choose to be excited? And hopefully this short solo episode can help cover some last minute questions and get you feeling more on that excited side for what I am convinced is going to be an incredible racing experience for you. If I do miss anything out that you would like an answer to, or if I get anything wrong, which I am human, it can happen, then please do comment on this episode and let me know. And big disclaimer, I do not work for Tokyo Marathon. I do not have all of the answers, so please don't hold me to that. But I mostly have the same information that has been supplied to all of you. And I've tried, and I want to try help clear up any remaining confusion around the questions I've received. And I've tried to go seek out further clarification on some points, and I will provide some basic coaching guidance where I can too. So let's get to it. To Tokyo have now officially released the runner's handbook. So I would definitely check that out if you haven't already done so. You should have been emailed around the 9th of February with a link to it, and it's also available on the Tokyo Marathon website. However, I know for some, the handbook has actually caused more worries because you found some of the areas to be confusing. And I absolutely think this is mainly a case of lost in translation and not intentional. I am constantly hearing how welcoming Japan is as a country. And I do believe the race organizers, of course, want you to just have a great and safe event and are trying to do everything they can to make that so. I would also encourage you to read the whole handbook and a couple of times, as I found that they do expand on some points further in the handbook to try and find out what the biggest questions still were. I put a question box on my social media last week. The handle for that is in the show notes. It's at the Meg Method if you want to connect in the future. And on this question box I put out, I asked you to send me any remaining questions or concerns regarding the race that you still had. And lots of you did send me some questions and concerns. So I'm just going to breeze through as many as I can. So here we go. First question, the rulebook says we can't bring any bottles or liquids into the start. What about gels? Yes, gels are fine. They are considered as food, which is allowed into the marathon. But please remember, you cannot drop litter in the race. So make sure you are putting your rubbish or trash back into your pockets or in your running belt. And this is the same for Tokyo in general. Japan is a very clean and efficient country. You will find it hard to track down a bin or trash can on the streets, and you are expected to take your rubbish home with you. So during the race, pocket your rubbish or trash or put it in the clearly designated bins and trash bags along the course. Next question I got asked a lot is, do we have to take our phones with us? The handbook states that you must be wearing your bib with timing tag and your wristband with you upon the entry to the start line. Otherwise, you will not be able to participate. So that is compulsory. The wristband will be given at packet pickup at the expo, and you'll be expected to wear this until you've entered the start gate on the day. Small side note on that, I have worn many a wristband in my time, and I'd recommend you make sure it's not too loose and not too tight because you are going to be wearing it for a while. If you have prepaid baggage check, then you need to bring your official baggage bag and baggage sticker with you. And on page 12 of the handbook, you will read that they strongly encourage that you bring with you your smartphone and public transportation IC card in case you drop out or if there is an emergency. But the smartphone and IC card is written as a strong recommendation, and it is not stated as compulsory in answer to your question. It doesn't state you would be refused entry if you didn't have it. I'm personally going to bring my phone with me anyway due to the safety concerns that they mention in the handbook. I've had a question here about paces. Hi Meg, the pacer I wanted is not in my starting corral. What should I do? Now, I'm not the queen of the paces here, so I don't have all the answers, but I would keep in mind that the paces are running on gun time. So yes, the pace you want may be further back than it appears. You can help yourself out here by getting near the front of your corral on the day, but bear in mind the reality of that is a lot of people will be doing it, so you can only try your best. And just try to stick to your racing strategy. You've likely been training without a pacer by your side and sticking to your own plan and strategy for your whole training. So I don't see any reason why you can't continue to have a strong performance on the day. Trust yourself, back yourself. And if you have a Garmin watch, what may also help with this is the Race Pro feature. That is found in the Connect app on your phone. It's a standard feature, and I believe on the app, you go to more, then select training and planning, and then the Pace Pro feature should be there. And that's where you set your pace plan for the race and then send it to your watch, and it will be available the next time it syncs with the Connect app on your phone. So try the Pace Pro feature. Next up, the Tokyo Running Guide suggested some different tracking apps for the day. I've downloaded, but they don't seem to be working. Yes, you can download the tracking app suggested in the handbook in advance of the day, but please remember that they won't become active until the morning of race day, which is the same for many marathon apps, to be honest. So if you've downloaded and it's not working, it should do on the day. Next concern. There was some concerns about people in previous years finishing over the distance of 26.2. Your thoughts? Look, this can happen in any marathon. It does happen in many marathons. It can be a little frustrating, of course, if you are an experienced runner and you are racing for a specific time, but it does happen even at other majors. And unless you are an elite runner, it really shouldn't be a big concern. Things that might help to be aware of for the Tokyo Marathon, it is a measured course. So they will have measured out a 26.2 course like in the other major marathons. However, like other majors, they don't paint a blue distance line to follow on the road at Tokyo Marathon. There are some wide roads in the course, and there are a handful of turns that you may have to take a little wide due to congestion. So these things together can add a little bit of distance for you on the day, but this distance added will be minimal. And if you can refrain from weaving too much during the course, this can avoid going over the distance also. And any big errors on the distant front will more likely be due to GPS errors. As remember, Tokyo has a lot of tall buildings that can interfere with GPS signals, so that may lead to a few inaccuracies. So I'd just be aware of that information and actually use it as a positive. You know this information, so it's not going to blindside you on the day. And you really don't have to look hard to find countless reports from previous runners saying what a great day they had, that they got their PB at Tokyo, and that this wasn't a massive issue for them. So if that has been a concern of yours, I hope that positive feedback can be a comfort. Next question. I'm still wondering how I could discard any layers/clothes after the start. Well, at the start line, there will be specially designated clothing bins that you throw your clothing into. You can't throw it anywhere else. Page 15 shows the location of those clothing collection bins at the start, and those are the only places you can discard clothes at the start. However, I am aware that your question was for during the race, and during the race, I would recommend that you wear a layer that is easily removable that you can tie around your waist, as you cannot discard clothes along the course. Or ideally, if you have a loved one, you could give it to them. So discard at the start, give it to a loved one, keep it on, or wear something lightweight that you can tie firmly around your waist. I hope that helps answer that question. Next, the handbook says no trash allowed that is not from the aid station. What are your thoughts? I believe what the handbook is meaning here, and what I read, is that do not throw away trash anywhere other than in the trash bags that are at the aid stations or being held out by volunteers along the route. And this should be a lot clearer and more obvious on the day. Next, can you please clear up the start line / water bottle situation? Yes, I can. I think you are referring to this fact that the handbook states you cannot bring any water bottles into the start area, whether plastic, soft, or silicone. There are usually water cups available at the start, and there will be water and Pocari Sweat, which is the race's version of Gatorade or Lucasade in the Western world, and they will be available at designated stations throughout the route. You can bring into the start line unopened, commercially available drink boxes and aluminium foil pouches. I believe you can find these in basic convenience shops in Tokyo, but the size must be under 250 milliliters or less. Next up, someone asked, how do I work out my starting corral? So this will be on your bib confirmation. You will have received an email around the 9th of February that also had the handbook link in, and you will get a link in that to your bib confirmation as well. So you follow that link, you enter your date of birth and the email address that you signed up to the race with. You'll then be taken to a page, and that will tell you the number desk to pick up your race packet from, what number from the expo, what number entrance gate to head to on race day, and what starting corral you are in. You can then download a PDF copy of this information, which you'll need to take with you. That's compulsory, along with your photo ID, to take to the expo to pick up your race packet. The dates and the times of the expo are in the handbook, and you cannot pick it up at the start line. Hi Meg, I'm feeling pretty gutted and a little worried going into this marathon, as I've been dealing with lots of setbacks these past 6 months that have massively affected my training. I'm still going to turn up and give it a go, as I've waited so long to do this race, but do you have any advice on how to stop feeling frustrated? I know how fortunate I am to have gotten a place, and I'm grateful, but I feel guilty for not being as excited as I should be. Thank you so much for the big podcast. You're very welcome. And first of all, thank you to this legend for being so vulnerable in sending me this question, because I'm absolutely certain that you won't be alone here. And from an outsider's perspective, I will say you have nothing to feel guilty for. Your experience is real and relative for your life, and how very human of you. I think actually many people, myself included, are unfortunately not going into this race feeling at their best, or maybe the experience is already turning out not to be what they expected, whether that be due to injuries, health issues, life circumstances, maybe a mix of all of them. And it can feel like you've missed an opportunity before you've even had it. And that feeling sucks. It's disappointing. And that's okay. You're allowed to feel those things. That is what feels true to you. And I think you're grieving in a way. You are experiencing a feeling of loss for a moment that you thought you were going to have. And my advice here may actually surprise you, but I think you should let it suck. Why shouldn't you? Let yourself grieve that loss and be disappointed about that. Give yourself an hour, an afternoon, a day, maybe 2 days to feel what you need to feel, because anger, frustration, disappointment, nostalgia, they are all big feelings, and they deserve to be felt just as much as the exciting ones. And in my experience, if you try to ignore them and push them down and pretend they're not there, they will demand to be felt. And they will find their own way to let themselves out, whether it's convenient to you at the time or not. So I'm not going to be a positive Paula and tell you to live, laugh, love your way through it. I'm not really a fake it until you make it sort of person, to be honest, because I think the reality of that is you actually usually fake it until you break it. You're not a robot. You are human. So I say, give yourself a small window to embrace the suck, to embrace the disappointment of not being able to approach the race how you hoped. And I'm sorry that was your experience. Mark a date on the calendar if you have to. February 24th, have a grown-up tantrum. Tell no one for the Grinch lovers out there. But feel what you need to feel. Let it pass through you. And then now that you no longer have to carry around all of these heavy feelings that you're pretending not to have, you actually have open arms to welcome in some excitement, some curiosity. You can say the race might not be how I pictured in my head, but I'm open to something different. I'm open to an experience that is special in its own way. And you may never have gotten to a start line with this many challenges before. And that in itself is actually a personal best because you've committed to running despite all of this adversity. And if you only have 30% to give on the day, yet you show up with that 30%, you're actually giving 100% of what you have on the day. And you can't give any more than that. You can't give more than 100%. So what I will say is what an absolute legend you are and what a legend you will be on race day. So acknowledge that, embrace being a legend in an iconic city and in one of the most popular races in the world. And yeah, I don't know if that's helpful. I'm not you. I haven't lived your experience and I won't pretend to. But hopefully there is some value in there somewhere. And if you bump into me in Tokyo, whether at the expo or somewhere else at the start line, maybe please do come give me a hug so I can tell you in person what a legend and how inspiring I think you are. And off the back of that, I've had quite a few messages from people who are still concerned about the cutoffs. And again, I'm not going to stand here like a guru with a head mic and tell you to stop worrying about it, because that is really not helpful. You obviously are worrying about it and you can't magically just switch it off. But what I will say here is that regardless of your anxiety, one of the biggest things you can physically do for yourself is to back yourself. And backing yourself means taking action, because at the moment, it's your brain that's doing the working overtime. So take action. What actions can you take in the here and now to give yourself a better chance? Because it doesn't matter what happened on previous races. It's gone. You can't change it. You can only take the lessons from it and choose to learn from them with your actions right now. You equally have no control, despite what your brain will tell you, of what can happen in the future. And no matter how convinced you are about exactly what your race experience is going to look like, you will be wrong, because you can never predict exactly what the race is going to look like. It's always going to look slightly different. So back yourself with your actions in the here and now. Now, you might be thinking, wonderful, cheers, Meg, for nothing. That's all good in theory, but what can I actually take away from that? So what I will say, if you are somebody who is concerned about the cutoffs, here, I'm going to give you now some actionable things you could do to help give yourself a better chance on the day. Try to go to the toilet before the race starts and before you get into your starting corral, because there won't be toilets in the corral. And then when you are in your corral, try to get as close to the front as possible. Now, as I said before, lots of people are going to try to do that. So all you can do is try your best to get as close to the front as you can. And when the race starts, try your very best not to stop for at least the first 10K for things like the toilet, taking photos, etc. Now, I hope, though, that there is common sense here. If you absolutely need the toilet, please, of course, go. But if you don't really need it and you can keep at a decent but manageable pace for the first couple of cutoffs, then you'll really help your chances further into the marathon. And if you want to keep track of your pacing properly during the race, then you could change your smartwatch to show kilometers and pace per kilometer. And you can also create a pacing band for your wrist or laminate a pacing card that is going to remind you of the cutoffs and what time you need to get there according to your pacing. But now, you know yourself best as to whether that is going to help or hinder your mindset. So think about that carefully and what's actually going to help you. Is it going to reassure you having that written down, or is that just going to get you more jumbled? And like Yumi and I said in the Tokyo Marathon Essential Guide episode, you've known these timings in advance for a while now. You've put the best into training that you can, and you can only try your best on the day. So run smart and try to focus on what you can control so that you can better enjoy the day. You've likely spent a lot of money and a lot of effort getting to that start line so you can have the experience. So please don't be so focused on getting to the finish line that you let the whole experience pass you by. Focus on the actions that will keep you in the now. Make sure you celebrate yourself for getting to the start line, as that's an achievement in itself, and soak in the experience where you can. The finish line, in my opinion, is an extra bonus. Next up, I've also had a few people message me now to ask for details about the Italian restaurant that the legendary David Yim mentioned in the big essential Tokyo Marathon episode we did. I have put the restaurant name in that episode show notes, and I'll put it again in this episode show notes, but it is called Pizza Salvatore Cuomo Yacht Sewer, and it is in Shinjuku City. I have personally booked a table via Google for 7:30 p.m. on the Saturday evening. If you are going to be there as well at that time, please do say hi in person. I'd love to meet you. And if you're interested in having dinner there on the Saturday, then I would recommend booking in advance as soon as you can, since the tables are being booked up fast. As of Tuesday, the 20th of Feb, when I last looked, there were still some tables from 7:30 p.m. onwards. And I believe you can give 1 day's cancellation notice. But yes, since we mentioned that on the big marathon episode, the tables are flying through. And the last few questions were to me personally, but I'll share as I've been asked by a few different people. When am I going to the expo? Currently, I plan to go to the expo on Thursday morning, and I will stick around for a bit if I can. If you do see me in person and recognize me, please do come say hi and have a cuddle. I would love to meet and champion you in person. And I'm always so grateful to hear feedback for the podcast and whether it's been helpful. And maybe we can send a little wave and a photo for Yimmy as well, because I know he would love to be there, and he will be there next year. And last up, am I doing a park run? I was thinking about it, as I've heard amazing things. I might do one later in my trip. However, for prior to the marathon, I'm staying in Shinjuku near the marathon start line, and the park runs seem a little far out for me for the morning before the marathon. So I may actually I might run in a park more local to me instead. Please feel free to send me a message if you're also keen to do a more local run on the Saturday morning, and let's connect. And that is very important. Definitely connect with people beforehand if you plan to run together in a local park, as they do have their own sets of rules. For example, in the park that I'm planning to run in, it has a specific running route that you have to stay on, and you can't run in groups bigger than 10. I do not want to be responsible for any park adventures. So please keep that in mind, and be aware that the official park runs in Japan, if you are running them, start at 8 a.m. And you need to make sure you have signed up for a park run account beforehand, and the park run is free. So there you go. I believe I have covered all the questions that were sent to me personally. I hope I've been helpful in this episode and can help flip you over to the excited side of the coin. Please do remember, I'm not an expert on all things, and I do not work for Tokyo Marathon. I just wanted to be helpful in the areas that I've received some extra clarity in. And I also wanted to throw in some coaching experience where I can also. But for everyone who is running, whether it is your first or your sixth star, I wish you the best experience possible. You deserve it. You've trained so hard for this, and it will have been a long time coming for many of you. I know it was for me. And also, you will be in a very small minority of people in the world's population that has gotten to experience something this epic. So soak it all in. Let me know in the comments as well. How are you feeling about this race? What number was this for you? What was your biggest takeaways from this episode or the big episode? And make sure you are subscribed to my YouTube, this podcast, and also my social media, as I have so much exciting endurance and major marathon content coming your way this year. More stuff with Yimmy as well, including from myself a special start line marathon meditation that will be coming out very soon and in time before the Tokyo Marathon as well. So hopefully that can help some of you get involved in the experience too. So just follow the information to subscribe to those in the show notes. Travel safe, race safe, and soak up all that Japan has to offer. It is a beautiful country, and I'm so excited for you, and I'm so excited to meet some of you there in person. Be kind, be curious, be well, run with your heart. Big love.